Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I'm driving a 2018 Mazda CX-5. Up front is a 2.5 liter inline 4 and down below is a 6-speed automatic transmission. And if you want to read more of my thoughts, head on over to carmarshal.com/overdrive where I'll be writing a complete article about the new Mazda CX-5. But before I get back to that 2.5 liter, I want to just put this out there. This is my family's new vehicle. And so I've been driving it, pretty much daily driving it for the last week. So I know this car pretty well, and I'm going to have a lot to talk about. But let's get started with that 2.5 liter inline 4. Now, it is a 4-cylinder, which I was surprised that the larger SUV only comes with a 4-cylinder. But power really isn't a problem in this car. I've also reviewed the Nissan Rogue, and that had a 4-cylinder as well, and it almost fell flat compared to this. Now, the Rogue is a great car, and I'll be comparing that a lot because they're both 2018s. They're both in the similar class, and actually when my parents bought this car, that's the two cars that we weighed against each other. But power is not an issue with the 2.5 liter. No, it's not as big as a V6, but really this car doesn't need it. Now, like I said, 6-speed automatic transmission. It does have an optional sport mode. The sport mode will just shorten up the gear changes, and really, if you're in sport mode and you plus minus yourself, it's a lot more to the point, a lot more exact, if you want to say. Something interesting about the gas pedal is that when you put your foot down, it goes, right, as any other car would. But if you put your foot flat to the floor, there's actually a button underneath the pedal. So when you put your foot down and don't hit the button, you're probably giving it 90% throttle. When you click that button, you actually click the button, it gives you that last percentage, which I personally really like. It was kind of fun to play with. And last but not least, for the drivetrain, this CX-5 is all-wheel drive, so it makes snow driving really super easy. This vehicle is available in front-wheel drive, but this is the all-wheel drive variant. Now, let's get on to the interior where we have a lot more to talk about. Well, in front of me, I have 3 gauges, a speedometer in the middle, tachometer to the left, and then a screen on the right. Now, right now, I'm actually road tripping on the way back from Wisconsin, so this video will start in Wisconsin and actually end in Illinois. But since I'm road tripping right now, I have it on the screen that displays your vehicle, your CX-5, and then a vehicle in front of you and your following distance. This will play into the cruise control, which I'll talk about in a second, but that screen can then be changed to show your coolant temperature, miles till empty, your compass, as well as outside temperature, odometer, and your fuel. The outside temperature, fuel, and odometer actually stay constant with every page. So no matter what you show on that gauge, you're always going to get those 3. Here I'm looking at an MPG gauge. That's for average MPGs. If you're really trying to squeeze the most you can out of it, that's the page that you're going to want to look at. Then I have trip distance, odometer, that sort of thing, service reminders, and then we're back to the lane page, I guess I'm going to call it. It's showing me and the car in front of me. But getting onto the steering wheel, on the left I have my audio options. I can skip, I can up the volume, down the volume, I can answer phone calls on the left, and also that info button is what's going to change the gauge on my right. Now, on the right side of the steering wheel, you have your cruise control options. And so I'm actually using that right now. This car has radar cruise control. If you look at the front of the car, the Mazda emblem looks a little weird. It looks a little funky. It looks like it's almost behind glass. That's because this car has radar cruise control. And basically, so right now, I have it set to the car in front of me, and I can also max it out. So it'll only max out at 65 miles an hour. So if someone pulls away from me, the car isn't going to chase them. It'll max out at 65 miles an hour. Right now, I'm not even touching the gas. If the person in front of me speeds up, I'll speed up with them up till that point. If they slow down, the car will actually slow down, and it'll actually brake for you as well. Like actually right now, someone's throwing brake lights. We're slowing down. Yep, see, now we're starting to slow down. I'm not touching anything, which is a really handy feature. You can set your following distance. So I have 2 bars of following. There's 1, 2, or 3 bars of distance, which is usually about a car length. So this feature has been great. I've been using this feature a lot, and really it comes in handy when you're in construction because people slow down, you speed up, there's all different stuff like that. So that's a really handy feature that I've really been enjoying. To the left of the steering wheel, you have a couple buttons. Traction control off, Pretty self-explanatory, turns the traction control off. Then you have the trunk open button, which does have a power tailgate. And then you have the lane departure off button. Now, lane departure, this vehicle will actually nudge you if you start to go over a line. So basically there's sensors around the car, and if the car senses that there's a white line, say a dividing line or a lane line, and you start to go over it, the car will actually bump you just a little bit back into your lane, as well as it'll warn you. That's a really helpful feature, a really nice feature that comes on the CX-5. That, paired with the radar cruise control I mentioned earlier, makes it a really easy road tripping car. I started off this morning with 100 miles on the car. I'm at 264 now, and I imagine I'll be somewhere up near 350 by the end of my road trip. And really, it's been a comfortable experience time and time again. But let's get back to the interior. So, to the right of me, I have a touch screen, which is the infotainment center. This is where you're going to find your music, your navigation, as well as maintenance updates. So it's going to tell you when you need to get serviced and that sort of thing. Let's first talk about the navigation in there. The navigation is, I want to say, crude. It's very, very basic. It'll tell you where you need to go. In terms of navigation, it's not the best, but you do have in-car navigation, which is nice. It is a nice feature. A lot of people don't like the Mazda system, and I can't blame them. It's a little chunky to get used to, but I'll explain why I don't care about in a second. But let's talk about the music. So the music, you can Bluetooth, you can USB into it, or of course you have your AM FM radio, which it sends the sound through Bose speakers. Yes, the CX-5 has Bose speakers all around, which the only complaint I have about Bose speakers is that I didn't realize some music I downloaded from YouTube to mp3.org is not the highest quality. I listened to it in my G6 and I don't have an issue, but then I listened to those songs in here and I might not have gotten the highest quality download. I guess that's what I deserve. But the other gripe I have with the music is that for some reason this grinds my gears a little bit. The album cover on your phone does not display on the display. It just shows an album cover. Like right now, I paused the song for this review, but I was listening to Airplanes by B.O.B. And it has a picture just of B.O.B. It's not the album cover. It's just a picture of the dude. Which honestly doesn't matter. It's just like, I don't understand the idea behind having a different image. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's just a weird pet peeve of mine, but I look down and it's, the regular album cover. It's a cool looking album cover, but it doesn't show up on the navigations, or it doesn't show up on the center screen. But the reason why I don't really care all that much about how clunky the center screen is because we got told by our dealership actually last night that in September, all 2017 and 2018 CX-5s will get Apple CarPlay. Apple CarPlay is an amazing system, super handy, super helpful. You can use Google Maps through it. And so I will update on my YouTube channel when that does happen, but that'll be great. So I'm not dwelling on the infotainment center too bad, and I'm not too worried about it. The center screen is not only a touchscreen, but it can also be controlled by a little knob in the center, and I'll get to that when we get down there. Then, down below the infotainment center, you have 2 air conditioning and heating vents. Then you get your heated seats, your climate control, which has dual climate zones, which is really nice. My girlfriend is always way colder than I am, so it's super nice to have dual climate zones. Each person, the passenger and the driver, can set a different temperature, which is super, super handy. Then you get your shifter, which shifts normally like any other automatic car, and you can put it over to that plus minus that I mentioned earlier. To the left of the shifter, you do have a sport button. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to shorten up those gear changes. So like I said earlier, the center screen can be controlled by a knob. So you get a giant knob that can move side to side as well as twist. This is to help navigate the menu while driving. You can do it at a park too, but the touchscreen doesn't work when you're driving. It's a safety hazard to be reaching all the way up on the dash. So it has a little turn knob down here, as well as the volume is right next to it. So if I want to select something else, boom, I can go through here, tap it, whatever. To the left of the knob is my power parking brake, which, as you guys know, I'm not a fan of in cars. I prefer the actual handle, but you know, this is a CX-5, it's an SUV, it's not a performance car, it's not, you know, something that really needs a giant handbrake, so the power handbrake will do. Down below the parking brake button, though, is that you have another button called Auto Hold. And what this will do is when you press it or when you have it engaged and you come to a stop, you let your foot off the brake, the car isn't going to move. And it'll also hold you specifically on hills. That's actually what that assist is for the hills. So you don't roll backwards when you're on a super steep hill and hit the person behind you. Up on the mirror in the center, you get 3 different home buttons. So if you have 3 different garages, you can program the opener, the garage door opener, into your mirror. Of course, the CX-5 does have a sunroof. Beautiful, beautiful sunroof. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but I'm really glad that I have it. I can open it up whenever. Actually, let's open it up now. Flick of a button. Boom, now we have some fresh air. Now the audio quality has gone down, so we're gonna close that right back up. Now the CX-5, to some people's disbelief, is actually only a 2-row car. There is no 3rd row. If you want the 3rd row, you gotta bump it up to the CX-9. All right, so now we are in the back of the CX-5. And first things first, seats are pretty comfortable. I do have a center console, and in here I have 2 cup holders. This slot here, as I'm told, is actually for an iPad. I don't know how you'd see it, because if it stood up like this, I don't know how that would work. But then you get a little compartment with 2 USB charging ports, which is super nice. So each passenger back here can actually charge their phone, which I know is always an issue. Headroom is great, obviously, because it is a hatchback. Headroom is not an issue. Fully automatic windows, just flick it and it'll go up on its own. That's another nice feature. Both backs of the seats have seat pockets. I complained about the Mazda 3. The 2010 Mazda 3 did not have a back pocket on the driver's seat, which I understand, you know, obviously it'd be easier for the driver to reach behind the passenger seat than his own seat. I get that, but it's nice to have 2 pockets. And then the back occupants also have 2 little vents that can be controlled by this center dial. Other than that, not too much going on back here. We do get our own lights, but they're just regular standard lights. Nothing real too crazy. But that being said, it's a really, really comfortable 2-row vehicle. Like I said, I've been driving this car all day. I've been driving this car all week, and I really can't complain. It's really comfortable. The seats, they're leather with almost it looks like an Alcantara sort of middle. I'm not quite sure what it is, but they look super nice and they're really comfortable. The only thing is that they're a little hard. It's not that they're not comfortable, but I normally sit on top of my wallet because I just put my wallet in my back pocket, and that's really uncomfortable to do in this car. The side mirrors are not only really, really big, which is nice. They're visibly big, but they don't look hideous. But they do have blind spot monitors in them. So they have little orange lights that'll pop up when someone's in your blind spot. And also on the little gauge screen, it'll tell you when there's someone in your blind spot as well. It looks like a little Wi-Fi logo at whatever corner the person is in. So let's get to the looks of this car. Now I have to say, right off the bat, I wasn't a giant fan of the looks of this car. I thought the front grille was really big. It looked like a giant mouth, and I thought the headlights were a little too small. And honestly, I have to say, it has been growing on me. It's still not my favorite looking car ever, but it's a good looking car. I really do truly think it's a good looking car. The color blue, I believe it's a midnight blue. Really, really cool color. Mazda has definitely been stepping up their games with color. You guys know and love the Soul Red on the Miatas and Mazda 6. So really, it is a really cool color. But getting back to those squinty headlights, they are really bright. They are LED headlights, and I think they look really good, and they look really good at night. The taillights are also LED as well as the backup lights are super bright. Really, lights, vision, not an issue in the CX-5. And I really do think it does look good. Now this car does have keyless start, so it's a push to start, as well as it has a smart key, so it won't let you lock the keys in the car. So it'll actually do this really, really annoying beep if you leave the keys in the car, or if the car is running and you shut the door with the keys still in your pocket. It'll do this really, really annoying ding, which is good. It'll remind you about the key, but when I was filming this, you know, I always get in and out of the car, so I must have heard that ding 1.5 million times. So would I buy a 2018 Mazda CX-5? Well, you might be wondering, Zach, you said this was your family's car. don't you already own it? Well, no, I didn't pay my own personal money for this car. But would I? And I genuinely think my answer is yes, because here's what I'm thinking. It is my goal one day to have a family, to start a family. And I know that cars will always be a very important part of my life. I always plan on at least having an RX-7, hopefully my RX-7, as long as nothing happens to it. And I always want to have at least a project car. I want cars to be a constant in my life. And I realize that owning an RX-7 and working on cars doesn't always mix with having a family. The RX-7, my FB, is not the best family car. And so yes, I would want to start a family one day. And so I think this would be the perfect car. I love Mazdas. It's a very comfortable car. It's a very well-equipped car. And so yeah, I would buy a Mazda CX-5. I really would. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something about the 2018 Mazda CX-5. I personally love it. If you want to read more of my thoughts, head on over to carmarshal.com/overdrive. But again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. Here goes a sight from my soul.